Hi guys, welcome to another weekly update from the Red Robin podcast. It is the 13th of December, I think it's our 4th edition, so we're going to keep it rolling with you guys, doing weekly updates, especially once the season starts. I mean, last week it was just about the squad numbers and the Tenerife camp. This week it's been pretty quiet. I mean, I want to keep this content flowing. Sometimes I feel a bit daft because there's not much to discuss. I feel like first, the biggest thing to talk about is our HeritageCasts. We've obviously had the Kevin Leroy one. We've had the Lawler one that's just recently been released, so check that everywhere, guys. Keep it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's everywhere. You've got the Kev Leroy one, you've got Lawler's, you've got Quinlan's coming up, which is going to be brilliant. That is released on Wednesday the 15th, so that'll be Wednesday morning. We've already pre-recorded that. That's not going to be a live stream, just because obviously Adam and his partner are now back home in Australia, so we had to film it at about 7 hour time, so it was pretty early for me and Chris, and obviously we thought people would be going to work and there'd be no point. No one would probably get involved in the conversations and it'd be a bit pointless doing it as a live stream. There is a bit of probably halfway through, you've got about 2 to 5 minutes, I'd say, of me and Chris babbling on because Adam's Wi-Fi dropped. It's normally Chris's, his dodgy internet connection, but Adam's did a few times, so obviously when you're listening, when it does drop, I know it gets a little bit annoying because it drops like 2 to 3 times in 5 minutes. After the third time, when we're getting back, it does run smoothly. It's literally 5 minutes. And me and Chris discuss Adam in that time as well. And what a nice bloke, I think if we would speak about George first, it was great. A former teammate of mine, love speaking to him, still speak to him regularly. And he never really does out like that. He'll admit he's not really talked to, he's not really in the media. He's quite a shy player. And for him to be able to come on and speak to for an hour with us about all his appearances for Ulcar, his season's relegation, breaking into the first team squad, playing hooker, eventually now moving to Castleford. It was tough for him, because he's now a Castleford employee, so it must have been tough for him, and we really appreciate his time. So remember, on top of all the legendary Scott Morrell ones, Dobson, Morgan, Mantellato, you've now got George Lawler's. Quinlan's going to be dropping soon, and Adam's a great bloke. I put a tweet out saying, I just wish we'd have seen him a little bit more of him. I think every season he missed a big chunk of it due to injuries, and that's no fault of his own. And I think when you listen to his story, injuries hasn't affected him. He's quite a positive person still, and even though he's retired now, and we're the first people to speak to him on a podcast about his retirement, which is a privilege for me and Chris, is that he's still probably going to be playing in amateur. He'd spoken to Wakefield, he'd spoken to Lee Centurions. I don't want to give too much away because I want you guys to listen to the podcast, but he's always been a positive guy, and he said even when the announcement came that Tony Smith rang him about 𝚂𝙾𝙲𝙀 and the fact that Adam had been moving on, he kept going, he kept working hard. He's never been one to shy away, and he said his performances weren't the best sometimes. He's very critical of his performance, and I think that shows what a true character he is. And I feel like if Rovers had seen a lot more of Adam Quinlan and we'd have got 5 full seasons out of, the Aussie fullback, would have been in a lot better position than we has been in like 2018, 19, 20, because on his day, he's one of the most skillful players I've ever seen in a Rovers shirt. I mean, when we're on a podcast with a person, I always feel like you're praising him because you want them to go, oh yeah, the good guys, them, Joe and Chris. But with Adam Quinlan, you've got to admit, even though we didn't see much of him sometimes and there was lengthy spells out of the game, when he was on the pitch, you look at that Warrington game, Tony Smith's first ever game, his skill and his communication as well. And I know 𝚂𝙾𝙲𝙀, as big as he is going to be, he's got big shoes to fill because Quino was a massive part of Rovers' spam, and I'm going to look forward to see how Lachlan obviously fills into that number 1 shirt, and he's got great praise for 𝚂𝙾𝙲𝙀. Adam says he was the best fullback in the league by a country mile for the past 3 years. He knew when 𝚂𝙾𝙲𝙀 wanted to come to Kingston Rovers, it was Adam's time to step away. So Quinlan's episode will be out ASAP on Wednesday, so you'll be able to listen to that. The live stream, obviously the stream of me, Chris and Adam talking, will be out on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch it with the video, it's going to be on there. Or if you just like the audio, if you're running, if you're listening, if you're driving into work or on a long journey, the video and the audio is always on everything. I don't need to keep telling you. And back to obviously the club news. We know that the reserve system's coming back, and what fixture, 22nd of Feb. That's probably going to change because it's when Hull and Rovers, the first team players, are playing as well. But wow, Hull derby to open up a reserve campaign, getting me excited even speaking about it. I think Rovers and Hull, the Colts on East Park, Boothry Park, a bit too young. I'm a bit too young to remember them, but I've seen the videos of the Colts. I think Paul Fletcher's got a lot on YouTube, his page. Feisty, passionate, a bit more lenient, you know, because it's not the first team, but there'll be some good attendances there. And for the likes of, you look at our halfback situation now, you've got Abdul, Milnes, Lewis. If Lewis, probably Abdul's going to play all the time, but if Lewis and Milnes, one of them's not playing, they can play for their reserves. It's that simple. And I think for people like 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙸𝙾𝙳𝙁 Tonga guy, it's going to be an absolute godsend for them because they're going to be playing regular rugby with the lads from Dewsbury who are coming in on dual reg. So we're going to have a few Dewsbury players playing for 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙸𝙀 Rovers as well. A lot like we're going to see probably the likes of who I've just mentioned play for Dewsbury as well. So that link, it's obviously a strong partnership. We're going to see them in the friendly this time. You know, we've got about 5 weeks until our first pre-season match against the Rams at the 𝚁𝙾𝙳𝙀 Stadium Friday night, 21st of Jan. So it's going to be for them. I remember amateur players getting involved. Former teammate of mine, Marvin Lee, played for the reserve. Zeus Silk ended up playing with Jays in 2020. The late Jordan Cox, we saw Coxie play a few more times before he was taken too soon. So it's great to see that the reserve system is coming back. I think it's going to benefit not just 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙀 Rovers, but the British game as a whole. I think, forget about what's happening with the COVID variant and all that rubbish at the moment, but if the reserve grade can keep going, if they can link it, if Rovers are playing Warrington, then Rovers and Warrington reserves play at Craven Park or at the Halliwell Jones. Little stuff like that can make a big difference for that reserve system, and we can get behind it. You look at, and I speak in depth with Adam Quinlan about the reserve grade and the systems and the tier systems down under. If we can nail that over here, it'll make our club level and country level a lot higher. So Rovers reserves are back in 2022, and the guy, the coach, the head coach, the manager, whatever you want to call it, is our very own Danny McGuire. So it was announced today when I'm filming this on Monday the 13th that Danny McGuire is going to be joining the reserve system. He's going to be the head coach. He's going to be running it. He is still Rovers' assistant, so don't worry about that, guys. He's still going to be working with Tony Smith, Dave Hodgson and Stanley Jean, but Danny McGuire is in charge. It's a stepping stone for him. How many times have I said it on the podcast that I think Danny McGuire will be Rovers' head coach in a few years? In a perfect world, I'd love to see the club tie down Tony Smith for another 3 years, get Danny that development, get him 5 years as an assistant coach, earning his trade, doing his badges, learning on the trade, working with probably the best coach around, Tony Smith, getting that ethos, working with Stanley and Dave Hodgson. I think if Rovers can keep a core coaching staff for the next 2 to 3 years, when Tony Smith decides if this is enough, if his journey's come to an end, he might want to take a director of rugby role or go upstairs. You look at what Shaun Wane's doing at Wigan. Tony Smith might want to do that, and Danny McGuire will be ready then. I want Magsy to have 2 or 3 years working with the reserves. He obviously is still like a head coach, you know. I've spoken to George Lawler and he said Danny McGuire does exactly the same as every other coach. You know, they're all equal. Tony's just the main man. And I do believe one day Danny McGuire will be head coach of 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙀 Rovers. I don't want that to happen for a few years because I think the way we're going with Tony Smith is fantastic. And Smith looks like he's got his buzz back in the game of rugby league, and we know his contract runs out at the end of 2022, so hopefully we have a successful season. We push for another playoff spot, and you never know, we might have Tony Smith in charge for a few more years, and then eventually probably the consort in waiting, as they call it in the royal family, is Danny McGuire for 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙀 Rovers. But it's going to be great to see how the reserve system goes along. I'll be doing probably reports as well for Prost RL. I've done a few reports as well, guys, so keep checking them out. I really appreciate your feedback and your kind words. The Rugby League Review, which is another podcast. Obviously, I know this is the Red Robin podcast, but I actually got to go on with them guys to video record with Mikey Lewis. So that's going to be out in the next week or so. Obviously, as a Red Robin podcast host, I'm not allowed to get any of the players on, but because I was doing it for this other podcast, I actually got to speak to Mike, and it was really good to give a bit of a Rovers perspective as well, because them guys, you know, Ethan, the bloke who runs it, he's from Warrington, I believe is a Warrington fan, and the other kid was a Lee fan who I did it with, Ben. So it was nice to get that Rovers perspective, and we spoke in depth about his career, about the Catalan Warrington game, developing with Milnes and Abdul. So even though it's not a Red Robin podcast, I am on that, guys. So I'll make sure once it's out, I'll send you all the links, and I'll put it on all the forums and stuff as well, because, you know, it's me speaking to Michael Lewis. I think it was a really interesting listen. I really enjoyed it. So there's plenty of content to come for you guys. We have got 2 more HeritageCast guests that we haven't recorded with yet. One is a local legend, played for 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙸𝙰𝙀 for a long time, a fan's favourite as well, and what a nice bloke. And I feel like when he left in 2015, he could have stayed a lot longer, because our defence especially, and his line running, I really appreciated that, and I thought he was a cracking player, and he's still going now in the game, which is a bit of a clue for you guys. And the other, a bit like Adam Quinlan, we only saw this Australian for 2 years, didn't get the best out of him, we know that, he knows that, and he's coming on and he's going to chat about injuries, his post and pre-career. It's going to be a really interesting listen. That will probably end the Red Robin podcast for 2021 before we go on to bigger and better things in 2022. Miles more content, a few more issues to, you know, we've got a few discussions ahead, which, bear with us, we're going to get stuff done, and it's going to make... Pardon me, it's going to make the podcast a lot better, a lot smoother, a lot cleaner as we move into 2022. So thanks for listening, guys. Keep up, keep spreading the word of the podcast. We know the off-season's a bit boring, so we hope we can bring you lots of more content. So we really appreciate it, guys. So it's been 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙸𝙾𝙳 from the Red Robin podcast, and I will see you on Wednesday for the Adam Quinlan one. Obviously, that's already recorded. Go see the 𝚂𝙾𝙳𝙀𝙀 one, the George Lawler one. Keep listening to it, the season review with Jenna Brooks. Some absolutely cracking listens, guys. I will see you soon. Up the Robins.